Hey folks, it's KW Miller. We've gotten literally thousands of questions about South Africa, both Eskom and the South African sovereign situation and in general economic position. So I thought I'd take a few minutes tonight to just give you a quick update, casual, bear with it. Here's the bottom line. I've been working on South Africa since 1996. When it comes to the energy and infrastructure sector in South Africa, yeah, there are experts who can tell you things, but nobody's been doing it longer than I have. And not only globally, but specifically in South Africa with Eskom and dealing with these issues. So here's the bottom line. South Africa / Eskom are one. They're the same. You can't separate them, number one. Number two, South Africa needs, meaning South Africa and Eskom, needs about 1.7 trillion rand. 1.7 trillion rand, do the math, to start to try to clean up what is going to be a 10-year restructuring of their baseload generation, aka electricity transmission distribution system. Let me make sure everybody understands. South Africa is in a deep, deep hole, and it's not going to change anytime soon. Number one, Eskom was a world-class system back in 1994. It's been degenerated down to basically nuts and bolts. The current government and their parastatal activities have literally stolen everything that wasn't nailed down in South Africa, specifically at Eskom. Eskom has been whittled and embezzled and stolen and corrupted down to the ground. The coal plants are in desperate, desperate shape. I'm talking about the old fleet and the new fleet. And the new fleet, Kusile and Medupi, are in deep trouble as well. Poor construction, poor coal supplies, poor operations. So we've got assets that are degraded. We've got basically no working capital to deal with the non-stop maintenance issues. We've got seriously zero money in the bank. Okay, Eskom is broke. The hole is $1.7 trillion. Excuse me, 1.7 trillion rand. We did the analysis, we did the work, we did the CRO work. It's an absolute disaster. There's no natural gas. Renewables are negligible. These IPP renewable rounds that they're touting, they're wrought with fraud. They're a tantamount to a joke. And even if they weren't, they're useless. The South African baseload electricity system is broken. It's dead. And it's going to take a long time to fix. The problem we have is it takes money and it takes credit worthiness. We build power plants and pipelines and transmission lines and distribution systems and storage facilities off of 20 to 30 to 40-year contracts. South Africa's credit is not only junk, it's virtually non-existent. The South African treasury is broke. It's broke. It's insolvent. The only thing keeping South Africa alive right now is the goodwill of international bond investors who basically, I think, are just afraid to take the hit and walk, and handouts from the World Bank. I'm telling you right now that South Africa is heading to the IMF. There's no way out of it. The South African government is heading to the IMF, hat in hand, and the only way that this gets resolved is if the IMF brings in executives like myself and others, a whole team, and we put in place an umbrella of control over South Africa's embezzlement, fraud, corruption, and we take control financially of these assets that need to be rebuilt, restructured, refurbished in some cases. You cannot give money to the hole that just keeps taking it down. Every dollar that goes into South Africa over 50 cents gets stolen, embezzled, or somehow disappears, at a minimum. So for all of the questions out there and all of these rosy stories about renewables, folks, let me be clear and blunt, because nobody else is going to tell you. I will. South Africa is in deep shit. South Africa's economy is on the edge of the cliff. No one in the industrial world wants to invest, and I know them all, in South Africa right now, because the economic instability, the lack of stable power, and the political instability are deemed to be off the charts. We could do business in emerging markets, but we cannot go into a pit that is a bottomless pit. So what do we do here? First and foremost, there is some salvation. We can nurse along the current Eskom coal fleet, but it's not going to be with the current government management oversight. It's going to have to be with independent senior executives who are brought in to run this. The current management, the current CEO of Eskom, and the chief operating officer, and the middle management is fundamentally incompetent to run this complex restructuring. They can't do it. They don't have the financial skills, they don't have the operational skills, they don't have the global energy and infrastructure skills. It's just over their head. And that's just a sad state of affairs that they're dealing with. You've got to bring in seasoned people. Number two, the consultants are useless. McKinsey's been banned from South Africa due to fraud. Bain has been banned. And number two, I used to hire those people 25, 30 years ago. They're useless. They can't do anything operational, okay? Number three, bringing in Price Waterhouse or anybody else to evaluate the financials is useless. We've done the work. We did the definitive Bible on Eskom in South Africa. We've done the financial analysis. We know the numbers. The numbers are there. You know, you can hire people to tell you what you want to hear and what you already know. The reality is, I'm going to say it again and I'll close it here. South Africa is on the precipice of complete and utter failure. They need a 1.7 trillion rand injection in some way, shape, or form. And the only place that's going to come from is probably the IMF. Okay? That's to keep the lights on and keep the machine going over the next 10 years. I'm not talking about this for one year, 10-year cycle. And that is only going to happen if we have adult supervision brought in to run the assets in South Africa. And then, once we stabilize the financials, which is not going to happen overnight, we can systematically start to bring in baseload power generation projects that are going to take 4 to 5 years to build anyway in some cases because there's no natural gas. We're dealing with coal, folks. A wind farm out in the Western Cape in the Karoo Desert isn't going to solve the problem in South Africa. So let me be clear. All of that wind and solar bullshit you're hearing is a complete joke, okay? I'm not poo-pooing the renewables. It's not going to solve the problem. We've got a 30 to 40,000 megawatt problem in South Africa. That's not a solar or renewable problem. That's a baseload generation problem, and it requires the world's best to come in there and fix it. That's where we are. KW Miller, send us a note. I'm just giving it to you straight, folks, because we can't respond to every message, so I'm giving it to you tonight right out of the horse's mouth. Stay tuned.